Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. 'Tis I, Colton Robertson, and to kick off 2022, I am joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
What's up? Brand new year. Got some
brand new year.
Great movies coming up here.
So let's lay out the plan for the people. First week of January, this be. There are 52 weeks in a year.
There are.
Over the course of these next 52 weeks, we will be covering one film per week, at the least. And this first week, we start in 1970. Next week, we on to 1971. The week after that, 72. So on and so forth for all 52 weeks in the year, all the way up to that last week in December, where we will be covering a movie from this year, 2022. So I'm very excited about the project. And here, we start with 1970. And I looked about for 1970 films. I was like, what are we going to cover? I'm unfamiliar. Like the 80s is when I get really strong with my knowledge of like what came out in what year. The 70s gets a little shaky for me. So when I found that MASH came out in 1970, I was like, you know what? That is an extremely culturally relevant name that I have heard. I don't know much about. So how about we get into it? So we're starting this whole project in 1970 with MASH.
Let's do it, baby. I'm glad it's kind of fitting that MASH starts it off in a way. I don't know why. It just kind of felt like a good starting point. Like it spun into this huge TV show that's massively popular. I know nothing about the show or the movie, before today. So it was really interesting to watch this movie, just go back to the 70s, like what movies were like.
More than anything, and it's interesting because this movie is set in the Korean War, which took place 1950 to 1953. However, this movie felt thoroughly 70s because of the filmmaking and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna lay out the groundwork here. It premiered January 25th, 1970. So fitting we're doing this January 1970. We're almost exactly 52 years later.
That's pretty sick.
That's almost exactly, and it's from the novel by Richard Hooker, written by Ring Lardner Jr., and directed by Robert Altman. And fun fact, Robert Altman, native Kansas Cityan, from Kansas City, Missouri.
Man.
So getting some love. This is a good place for us to start. I'ma say. And this was a fun movie, and definitely a product of its time. I don't want to hype this movie up too much because it is problematic now. But I can tell that if you're alive in 1970, this is a fun, good movie. Obviously now it is aged to a point where it is overwhelmingly sexist, plenty of racism, and a homophobic streak in the middle that is fascinating.
I was very taken away by that. I'm like, wow, I did not expect that to be in this movie at all.
And you know what? This is going to be this. We're gonna dive into the movie. So spoilers ahead for the movie MASH from 1970. Let's start with a base synopsis of this film here. We're following two Army surgeons during the Korean War, and they're basically throughout the movie using their own humor and hijinks, which often were extremely sexist, to kind of get through this. Ultimately, at its core, what I do appreciate about this movie is that it is anti-war. Nobody wants to be there. Nobody is happy with what's happening, and that's like that's the driving force behind everything that happens in this movie is them trying to survive and be happy.
It's like, even though this movie came out in the 70s and it's very different from today, they were self-aware enough. You know, like in the 70s, this was like a self-aware movie, and like I could see why it became very popular.
Oh, like, and another thing about this movie too is that it is very caricature. It's very satirical. Like it's like this is a depiction of the army to the extreme of what these guys are like, and probably not that extreme in terms of like, especially for the period, what they would do to entertain themselves, such as unveiling a woman in the shower for the whole camp to see. That one was like, I know in 1970 that's getting laughs, and even today that's getting laughs from some people. However, very, very uncool.
Just to see if she is a true blonde. It was over a $25 bet or $50 bet. That's all it was. Got the whole camp to watch in for it. Yeah, that's and even at the very end of the movie, the credits was kind of cool. Like there was no credits; it was just like it like.
Well, and this is interesting because we're starting here 1970. Star Wars is the first movie that doesn't have credits at the beginning. There's a title sequence and everything at the beginning of this movie, and there is in every movie up until 1977.
Wow.
When Star Wars changes the game and is kind of ousted from like critical acclaim for a little bit because of it. Like it broke some rules, and we'll get to that more when it's 1977. However, them plugging this was my favorite credit sequence like ever. The fact
this was cool, yeah,
really cool. Like I loved the way they did it, the way that like it came over the PA system, like it was like throughout the whole movie, how they had that going in the background, and obviously. What they had during the movie was kind of problematic too. They had the Japanese radio playing overhead, and it was very, very caricature-y and they had a lot of racism, especially directed towards the Japanese, which was interesting. There was, I mean, like the part where Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould arrived to Japan to play some golf, and they stand up inside their Jeep and start imitating the Japanese language, and it's like, fuck, this is not good. This is so. I'm gonna tell you, this took me. It's an hour and 56-minute movie. It took me 4 30-minute installments.
Yeah, it was. This was an interesting movie to watch because, like, I don't know. It's just. It's not like. The story is riveting and gripping, you know. It's not, it's not anything like that. It's just sit back and just try to watch and have some laughs if you can. Yeah. But a lot of it was just kind of like, I guess.
They're Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland, the leading men. You know, Donald Sutherland playing Hawkeye and Elliot Gould playing Dr. McIntyre. They are electric on screen together. I love them together. They're fun as fuck when they're not being racist or sexist or homophobic. They were really fun to watch. And you know, like it truly is just like a real deal product of its time. And like obviously 1970 we're in the heat of the Vietnam War. So there was an anti-war sentiment going around. So I appreciate them putting this movie out in 1970, like, because that shit,
like
until 75.
Those two, like, they're definitely the duo of the movie. I mean, they, you know, that's what the movie's about. But like, whenever the guy comes up to him, you know, with the orders of going to Japan, and they just fake out like you're like. Oh, we got to check you out seriously. Like, I might be able to save your life. This is like a 1 in 5. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like that. Like, you know, whenever they were doing stuff like that was like they just, I don't know, they worked really well together.
I loved the scenes where characters like, hello. They talked over all of each other and handshook, and like they did the whole thing. And apparently, this is a real mark of Robert Altman's like directorial style. Apparently, a lot of this movie is also. Improvisational, like a lot of
that makes sense.
Yeah, but while maintaining a general script by Ring Lardner Jr. Like apparently there was plenty of improv on the set, and it created for this. Like it's defined as a black comedy because it really is. There are moments in this where it's like, oh, this is also like a war film. We are watching blood shoot out of this man's neck, and
they were pretty gruesome in some of these surgical scenes and stuff like that. This movie, like, I don't know, it was just I didn't know what to expect going into it, and then just the movie happens. I'm watching it, and I'm just like, I guess I was expecting more, but I'm not disappointed by the movie. Like I'm not let down. But
that's what's interesting about this project in general is that like I'm going to be approaching these from a largely objective standpoint, and because they are mostly cultural touch points that we're going to be covering for the next 52 weeks, they're probably going to be all right. Like they're not going to be bad movies that we're watching.
Yeah, they're going to be one of the top movies of the year. I mean, if not,
there are a few exceptions that I've slid in here, like I wanted to get a variety in genre and stuff, so I think we're going to be covering like an 80s anime film at some point.
Sick.
Like I think that's 1989. Whoever wants to go find whatever 1989 anime movie I might be talking about, go for it. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And to start with such a, I don't know, I want to say laid back, because it was low key for the most part. Like it really is just them trying to get by. And I appreciate that angle of the movie, and I think that a modern take on this could be really, really well executed. And I mean, like I said, the cast was fucking fantastic. I mean, Donald Sutherland, Elliot Gould, and then Robert Duvall played Major Burns, who sleeps with quote Hot Lips. And Hot Lips is like, strangle me, Major, strangle me.
That's one thing. One thing that is timeless and will always be funny is sex. Anything dealing with sex, penis, boob, butt. Anything, it's always funny. Like that. Like that's what I even in the 70s, they're joking about it. It's like it's the same stuff, man. It's never gonna get old. Like it's just, I don't know. It like almost. I was looking at like how many jokes of this movie were sexual. Like, and it's like I'd say at least 60%.
Oh, it's most of the movie. Like and like there's even more. There's so much more comedy in this that like now isn't comedy. Like it's
a very different kind of comedy.
Now it's stuff that like if you put some of this in a 2021 movie, this movie is absolutely fucking garbage. Like you were getting flamed and canceled and all of that.
It's
because there's just so much sexual harassment. Like that's the only way I can put it, is that like the way they harassed the blonde lieutenant. And
even that night, even the night where she became Hot Lips, she was the dude was like, hey, I'll come back later to check in on you. She goes, no, that's fine, I'm okay. And he goes, no, don't worry about it, I'll come and check you out. She's like, oh, okay, I'll leave the door unlocked. Like it's like just every, I don't know. It's like they went out of their way to make every sexual encounter sex. I guess, I mean, it's the 70s. It's just how people thought. But.
Yeah, that was Major Margaret Hot Lips. But man, played by Sally Kellerman, and she was a fun role too. I mean, and there was the priest who was uncomfortable giving a man salvation who was about to commit suicide.
Wow. Oh, yeah, whenever that came up.
Dude, that scene was absolutely horrible.
Just, hey guys, I'm thinking about committing suicide. How are you thinking about doing it? Like, they're being, I don't know. I couldn't tell if it was like, okay, no, it's not. It's not a modern, if this was in a modern movie, it would be satirical to the point of yeah, we don't, this isn't talked about enough, men hide their feelings whenever they talk about this stuff, and this is exactly what was happening. But that wasn't really. the point that they were trying to make
here.
Yeah.
Because the way that I interpret this scene, this whole sequence goes on way too long too. It's like a 15-minute chunk right out of the middle of the movie where they're what was the character's name?
Painless?
Was it Painless or was it? Yeah, Captain Painless. Because he was the
dentist.
He was the dentist. Yeah. Whenever he can't get it up to cohort with a woman.
Mm-hmm. And he has to admit to not his one, not his two, but his 3 wives that he's gay, and that's just not enough for him, or that's too much for him. So it's the only option is suicide. And
I think
the only part that I laughed is whenever he was like, whenever you have to tell a woman, something like that, and he's like, well, that's my problem, but multiplied. Like it was like a one-liner. Like was the only.
Funny. And it's also interesting because I can't tell. Like, I think they were making fun of him for not being able to get it up by calling him gay.
Yeah,
and then the conclusion that he was gay drove him to be like, okay, well then I'm going to commit suicide. And that's where I have the beef.
That makes that.
I don't think he was gay.
I think
he was so in his head that he was like, well, shit, I have erectile dysfunction.
I didn't even think about it like that. Yeah, that's totally true. Like that's totally what they were going for. Dang.
Yeah, and because I mean, like what they put they fucking drug him and then have him sleep. They sick a woman on him to sleep with, and it's like, God, this whole scene is just hard to fucking watch. This is just painful, especially considering this dude took this pill thinking he was gonna die taking it. And
I thought he was dead. Like I thought he was dead. I'm like, wow, they really just he really just did that. And then and then this happens. I'm like, wow, like they just wow, like I don't know. This movie was really like you don't know what's going to happen next. Like you think you have an idea of where this movie's going? Nope. Like.
And I would be interested, like, if the series is kind of similar in tone, like, is it mostly just these dudes hanging out, shooting the shit in the 50s?
What I've heard is like they, how they were like drinking martinis in in earlier parts of the movies and stuff.
Dude brought olives.
Apparently, the show like that's a lot more like them just chilling, having martinis and stuff. That at least. That is what I have gathered is from the show is that it's more of the dudes just hanging out and like it's just their interactions that are funny,
That's frankly that's what we love about most shows. Like I think like for example, Game of Thrones. Obviously, we love the big battles and we love the Battle of Winterfell and fucking the Battle of the Bastards and shit like that. We love those episodes, but what makes Game of Thrones are the episodes where it's just a bunch of people talking in rooms. That's like those episodes were the shit. And frankly, that's what I enjoy about most. That's why the sitcom genre is so fun. It's just a group of people hanging out. And I think that this is a good example of that genre, obviously. 70s and not exactly politically correct in tone.
Didn't know this.
Which is to be expected throughout the course of our watch here, especially early on here in the 70s. Like we're gonna run into a lack of representation, a lack of social awareness. Like there's just gonna be a bunch of stuff that's like hard to watch for a little bit, and
it'll be a common trend for a couple years.
For a couple weeks here at least. I mean, the representation thing will extend into the 90s, but the 70s, I mean, we got The Godfather lined up and Jaws and Star Wars. Like we got some cultural touch points that like don't really, I mean, like I don't know, I haven't watched The Godfather in fucking years, but I'm ready to give that one a rewatch. But
I'm just glad that I'm going to be able to expand my like movie knowledge from this. This is like a beautiful way to have just like, I guess how many
decades
years? So 52 years of movies. Like that, and like, I don't know, like movies before the 70s, like I'm trying to think, and like obviously there's like the big classics, but like I feel like the 70s is really where like Hollywood starts taking off. Yeah, like movies are.
And I mean,
big.
like there are fantastic examples from the 60s. I mean, like 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's Stanley Kubrick.
Strange movie.
Strange movie, but it's iconic.
Yeah, it is cool. Straight like I knew it was a space movie, so I was like, "Yep, I'm digging this. I'm gonna love it, probably." And then like not a single word spoken for like 40 something minutes, and then there's just gorillas, and like. Anyways, getting off topic with A Space Odyssey, but like it's the
there was like Casino Royale, like James Bond movies in the 60s and stuff. Like so, like there was there's plenty of good examples of like there's plenty of stuff from the 60s, but I wanted to time this right. 70 through 2022. That feels good.
Yeah, this was a very interesting watch, that's for sure.
Well, and another thing that's interesting about this project too is that some movies will not garner an hour and a half of discussion. Like this one, I don't feel like this one's one that we need to do much more with. It was just a really interesting watch, especially to kick this whole thing off. And I have some I took some high notes. Whilst watching, and I thought the opening song was a very, very good way to kick it off. The Suicide is Painless, and I think it's the guy who tries to commit suicide in the middle of the movie is named Painless. So I think that was interesting. And the song, however, I think what it's conveying is like you're here, you're in the war. You're probably gonna die. Like that was the tone it set.
Yeah, it set the tone real quick of the movie. It was I guess I looked at the only thing I looked up before this movie was what MASH stood for because I never knew. And it stands for Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. Makes sense. I've just never looked into it what it stood for, but now that I know, this makes sense. That's all I had going into it. So hearing Suicide is Painless is like the first lines of the movie. I'm like, oh, this is a way different movie than what I thought this was. Like, yeah, but this movie opened up very interesting and closed very, like, it was a cool opening and a cool closing. Like,
and don't get me wrong too. Like, as much beef as I do have with the writing of this movie and how much of a product of its time it is, I do think it was visually very, very fun to look at. I thought the acting was superb. And the sets were fantastic. Like I loved watching this. Like visually, it was a fun experience. And I think we'll get, obviously, visual experience has evolved as we've developed CGI and stuff. But like early on here with physical sets, fuck, I love that stuff. So I can't wait to really, really pick that.
It's kind of nice watching a movie like this because what you see in camera, like, is legit. Like, everything's legit. When they're flying helicopters and stuff, like, they're legitimately flying helicopters there. Like, that's a legitimate dude flying a helicopter right there. Like, it's just kind of, this movie was all in camera, you know? Like, it's just film. There's no computer, like, no crazy effects happening. It's just straight film. And it was it's kind of nice to have a movie like that. You know, not super flashy and everything going crazy all the time. But
100%. And like that's really the high point of this movie for me. I think that the visual elements of the movie are really what make it. And I mean, some of the dialogue was really witty and funny. There was plenty that, I mean, there wasn't plenty. There was some that wasn't that wasn't flawed in logic and ideology, but all in all, like there was one line where they're like at the end of the movie where they're about to do the football game, and the way that they convince people to allow this football game is like, hey, you know, like instilling football over here is another way we can instill the American way. And I was like, duh. Of course.
Yep.
Like they took like the American sport. Like I know baseball's the American sport, but like that had already made its way to a ton of countries around the world and stuff. Like, but football, that was like that's an American sport inherently. So like they were like, fuck it, man, let's just have these dudes knock the shit out of each other. And I thought that was funny.
The only storyline that I was like confused with was like the 17-year-old boy or whatever, and like they got him examined or whatever. Were they trying to get him out of the arm? Like not.
Hojon.
What was his name?
Hojon.
And like
Yeah,
what was that about? Yeah, what was that about?
I took that like they really made him a background character in the movie, but like the moments where they did bring him up were like the most compelling. Like where when he's introduced, he's learning how to read English from the Bible with Major Burns, played by Robert Duvall, who, fun fact, will be in our 1972 movie, The Godfather, as Tom Hagen. But I thought that was a good place to kick it off, especially when Tom Skerritt hands him a nudie mag and is like, "Go have fun with this, kid, all right?" And he runs off, and like, there's like an obvious like a love for this kid amongst the dudes. Like they want what's best for him, and they're like trying, and like that like honestly was another one of the best parts of this movie. Like whenever they gave him something so that his blood pressure was really high, and
so they were trying to get him to not become a soldier. Army. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
They were trying to prevent him from having to do what they go through. So
I thought that because whenever the doctor was like, "I'll keep him here," because he could have just had a drug or whatever, and then they were like, "Dang it!" I thought they like the whole time, like this movie was so like wrong on so many things. I thought they were trying to do this kid dirty, like the whole time. I didn't think they were on his side.
No, they were trying to prevent him from having to join the war. Like they didn't want him to go through any of the fighting. They wanted, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe
that makes way more sense.
Maybe I just totally I missed, but
no, I don't. I think I was just
gotcha.
I like because whenever he came, like because he was early in the movie, and then he just came in like 80% the way through or something like that, or like way later on.
I think that it's fair of you to have assumed that, given the setting, who we're dealing with, a bunch of white American soldiers, and
I thought they were playing some prank or something. I was like,
that would make sense. Like that would make logical sense given the time and the period and the people we're dealing with. However, I truly think this was one of the times where they did something kind of right with the movie, where they treated this kid properly and tried to get him to not be in the army. Because
I liked the martini scenes, and now I like the kid scenes.
Yeah, they were.
I dig. Yeah, the olive, that whole thing, like
that was fun.
Man cannot savor a martini.
Yeah, man,
without an olive. And the fact that he drops it from way up, like for no reason. Like I mean, it looked cool.
Elliot Gould's a smooth motherfucker, and boy, oh boy, I mean, Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould are some cute motherfuckers in this movie. I'm not gonna lie, they look good. He even had Elliot Gould had the porn stash and everything.
Yeah, he was he was killing it with the facial hair.
You ever watch Friends?
Mm-mm. I mean, I know. I never watched it like religiously. Yeah. I've watched it as episodes came on.
Elliot Gould plays Ross and Monica's dad.
Oh. Interesting.
He's gray haired by then, and he's he's 50s, like he's definitely older.
Yeah, looking at like what Donald Sutherland looks like now, like it's just weird looking at what these actors look like now. Like
it's always so weird. Like going back to like one of the best examples of that for me is Mark Hamill. Like it's really interesting what he looks like now compared to what he looked like in '77. Like. I don't know why. Like, I think Harrison Ford, it tracks. Carrie Fisher, it tracks. Mark Hamill, though, I was like, this is a little weird. Like, I don't know. It just looks a little funky comparatively.
Interesting. Yeah. I always, every time I see Luke old, I just like immediately just think wise old Jedi. Like, he just looks, in his old age, he just looks, I don't know. Like, whenever he has his long beard, he looks like that. But, I see what you're saying. He kind of does not like track like with age. Like there's something,
but I do think there's something for all these characters here that does track with age. Like Donald Sutherland, like I think that's definitely what that dude looks like older. Robert Duvall, he practically looks the same, just with like a little bit more age. And Elliot Gould, obviously, he doesn't have the rugged, sexy thing going on that he did in the 70s, but he's still a good looking man.
Yeah, he was a sex machine too. Just
yeah, they were womanizing.
I want sex. Like he was like the talk of the that. But
well, and I want to go back to the dentist dude. Apparently he had a huge cock.
Yeah, huge dong. He was well,
and the dudes in the army line up to see it. These mans were thirsty.
Yeah, and then they played the fairy card after that. So like it was very interesting to see everybody in like the camp looking at this dude's penis and being like, "Man, I would kill to see that thing angry." Like that was a line, that a dude said. Then it was I don't know. It was you don't know what to expect from this movie.
No,
like,
you never do. At any
the next minute, it could be something totally different, like a football game. Why is there a football game in this movie? I didn't know there was going to be a football game.
As soon as that got brought up, I was like, fucking of course. Like, of course this drudgery of sexual angst and fucking misogyny and toxic masculinity culminates in a fucking football game. Of course.
And then you have the cheerleaders and how they make them so dumb and have no idea what's going on, and man, like of course that's how the movie had to end. Like it's just fitting for the movie, I guess. But
no, like I since I watched it in 30-minute chunks, it's fascinating because I get the first part of the movie and I'm like, okay, I have a general feel for what's going on. Second half of the movie, or the second quarter of the movie, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of wild shit that just happened. Third part of the movie, I'm like, okay, now I know it's just them hanging out, sexually harassing women. I generally get the idea. Mm-hmm. And then I turn on the last 30 minutes and they're like, let's play a fucking football game. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Let's go to Japan, save this dude's life, play some golf, come back. Now we're going the thing is that they showed two dudes playing catch at the beginning of the movie and diving into a mud pile, and that was their football team. They didn't have it it was out of nowhere. Literally, I wonder if this was in the script or if it was literally just yeah, we want to take you guys on. And they're like, let's actually, I don't know. This was definitely in the script because the whole game had to be written and stuff anyways. But
I wonder if someone improvised let's play football. And they were like, okay, fine, we'll write that in, I guess.
Whenever you're thinking of them writing this movie, you're thinking, okay, they're in their barracks, they hang out, they do funny stuff there.
Some other big dick swinging dudes show up and are like, hey, we got a football team. And then one of them can't stand that the other dude has a football team and they don't. So they have to be like, we got a football team too. Fuck, now I'm lying about having a football team and I got to put this shit together. And they're like, I know what to do. Let's get the black guy. That was another one that I was like, okay, interesting. And interestingly enough, Dr. Jones here, played by Fred Williamson, once played for our hometown Kansas City Chiefs.
This movie just made sense to start with this movie
for some reason.
How did 52 line up to 1970, and it just lined up with MASH? Although the movie, got some problems, but Kansas City. Two dudes from Kansas City from this movie, right?
At least, as far as I know.
Who knows who's from KC from this movie? Maybe this is just a KC-born movie. No, but
we also there was a mention of Sedalia, Missouri, at some point, in the background over a PA system. I was like, hey, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, Sedalia, Missouri, and then on a board, there was boards that would Missouri was one of the things it was pointing to,
They wanted to show some fucking love, I guess. Robert Altman wanted to show some fucking love to Kansas City, Missouri, I suppose. But he got a fucking Chiefs player in the movie who did go on to be an actor, Fred Williamson. He was in several blaxploitation films there at the beginning of the 70s and stuff. And he actually is probably better known for being an actor than ever playing in professional football. Interestingly enough, but
what a way to end the movie.
No,
Just,
yeah, it was. And
oh man, I guess the end was when they got to go home at the very end,
and
right?
see that very point in the movie made me go, okay. Like, I got the tone. Like, after, like, because I didn't know what I was supposed to be taking from this movie, because just, like, my headspace is so different than somebody watching it in 1970. Like, so at the end of the movie, when it's like, it's supposed to be a heartwarming ending. Like, and that made me realize that was supposed to be the tone of the whole movie. Like, them trying to get by. And I was like, okay, that makes me like it a little bit more. I can generally get the idea here. It was anti-war. Nobody wanted to be here, and so on and so forth. I just had trouble with plenty of the jokes along the way.
It's a movie that it is kind of like you have that moment of like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to feel. Like, if I was in the 70s watching this movie, that's how I'd feel. That's what they're going for. Okay.
Exactly. And like whenever Donald Sutherland walks in, Hawkeye walks into the operating room, and he's like, "Hey, he just told us we can go home." And the dude was like right now, can you finish this up so I can get the fuck out of here? Like, I realized, shit, they were like, the point of this movie was to feel sorry for them to an extent. Understand why they're doing the things they're doing is to just survive and have some laughs along the way. Mm-hmm. And then to end it with him going home. I was like, you know what? That is how I want this movie to end. And and ultimately that seals the whole anti-war message. Like, everyone wants to go home, and when McIntyre can't go home, he's absolutely devastated to watch Hawkeye leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and they don't, and they don't want to. He doesn't want to admit it though.
No,
it's like,
no,
it's just get out of here before they change their mind. Just leave, man. Like, just get out of here.
Yeah.
It was. I'm glad that they I'm glad that that's how it ended. They're out, and even when he had the vision in his mind of running to his family, that, he had that thought, and he's like, oh, right now I can leave. It was instant.
It was instant. He was like, I cannot wait to be there.
Thank God. Every part of the war they showed in this movie was the worst of the war. They didn't show most of the war at all because, that's not what the movie was about.
Yeah.
But every time that something popped up from the war, it was a guy getting, blood literally just dying, dudes dying on the table, or a dude grabbing the wrong syringe.
You forgot your shingle.
Yeah, oh man, I'm glad that that's how it ended. And it did make me realize, wow, yeah, I guess it was a hard movie for us to get into. Yeah. And relate to the characters and have that heart.
I'm inherently coming, and that's what's interesting is at the end of the movie, because of those realizations, I'd probably enjoy this movie a little bit more on
a second watch. Yeah,
mm-hmm. Because at the beginning of the movie, I don't like Hawkeye. I don't like McIntyre. McIntyre pulls up. He pulls up. I'll read you the high notes I took, so I'm baked, and all right, dude just pulled up with olives in his coat for martinis. I fucking love this guy. My very next note. Never mind, I forgot he was a straight white man in the 50s. Very much so a piece of shit, typical for the time.
And then
my next line was, he does have an absolute cannon though, because it was when he threw the football.
That's awesome. Yeah, whenever he pulled the olives out, I know it's a comedy, but I was like, this dude just carries around a can. He wasn't even expecting a martini at all before this. He was ready. Yeah, that dude has olives on him. Dude was ready with olives.
No, and my opinion of that McIntyre kept bouncing back and forth because there was a part later in the movie where someone was sexually harassing someone else, and he approached and punched that dude in the face.
Oh yeah.
No wait. It was because some doctor blamed a kid for a death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whenever he grabbed the wrong needle, he asked for a cardiac needle, and the kid started crying, and then you killed him. Good job. That's what he said. Good job. You killed him. And then
McIntyre
he was like,
was not having that, which I appreciated. That was
that was a cool moment.
I was like, you know what, good for you. And I love that they were like realistic with it. He smacked the fuck out of him and was like, fuck, that hurt. Like,
yeah, that was the most realistic punch I've seen in a movie because like the dude's hand hurts and he's like legitimately like he might have like actually punched
hit
him.
This man,
like I think he asked him like just for the movie. He's like, dude, just punch me. I rewound it and just kept watching it. Like, it looks like a legitimate punch. The way he holds his face and, like, reacts, like, he's legitimately, like, in pain. Like, that legit hurt him because he's even after, like, they're all out of the room, everything, he's like, I didn't expect that dude to get up, you know? Like, he says, like, when I punched him, I didn't expect him to get up, but he did. Like, I think it was truly, like, I don't know. I do feel like he actually punched him in the movie, but...
No, I feel that for sure. I want to take down a few more of these notes I took because some of them are pretty funny. I have one here that says rib cutter sounds like an absolute nightmare of a tool. I heard rib cutter at some point and was like, fuck that. And I took that down.
I don't even want to know. I'll Google it.
I'm assuming it cuts ribs, which is just fucking painful. One of my notes is the way everyone in this movie excessively shakes hands.
Yeah, this rib cutter looks straight out of like a torturer tool set. Yeah, I'm fine with just never thinking about a rib cutter ever again. But what are some of these more notes you got?
The fact that they drugged this dude during the game feels really racist.
Yeah.
That felt painful. I was like, oh, dude, there's an obvious reason why they do that to a black character, not a white character. Like, it's,
it was the only part of that was funny is the fact that his arm was so still, like it was so unrealistic the way that he pulled it out and then like
the cotton swab.
That was kind of funny, but
so that was a little goofy. And like, don't get me wrong, like I think that the general idea of this situation is funny. It's just because like I can't help but project a feeling of racism because
there's definitely not. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a reason the guy that's making a fool of himself in this situation is the black guy. Like. Yeah. You have the white dude that's just like smoking weed on the sideline, whatever. He's just chilling, like in this, and then you have him like thinking he's in a track meet or whatever, like just doing all these events but
this is an interesting note. I was baked. I do think this is the movie thrives on sexist, homophobic, racist, and toxically masculine comedy. Hard to say whether it's making fun of these men or the comedy is supposed to be simply the things they say and do.
Yes.
And, like, I was watching it through the lens of they're making fun of these guys.
Yeah, that's how I was watching it. I was but I don't.
No, they were not. They were not making fun of these guys.
They were not. Like that. That's how I was watching it the whole time. Or like a majority of the movie before I just realized like, oh, no, this is the 70s. This is legitimately just what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like I'm giving this movie way too much credit and like, for what it's trying to do.
No, I was too. But, I was like, this is either like really ahead of its time or like really before the time.
That is how the only, like, that was the main thought that was going through my mind the whole movie. Like, okay, this movie is either like super based and like crazy that this is in the 70s and like, they're killing it, or it's like,
well, like, that's what's interesting about it though, is that it has that satirical spirit. So they were like, they had an idea of what they wanted to do, they just weren't nearly progressive enough to understand it. Like it was like, and frankly, they didn't truly believe in those progressive standards, or else they would have been a part of the movie. Like it's like, it is just interesting. My next note after that was, after I watched a little bit more, okay, I do think it is caricature, and that some of these men's personalities are so overwhelmingly over the top, I can't help but think they're making fun of them. However, I do gather from the tone of the film that we are in some way supposed to admire Hawkeye and McIntyre.
Yeah.
Despite them being overtly pigs.
Yes. They were, like, every guy looked up to them. Like, everyone in the camp looked up to them. Like, they were the cool guys.
They were the dudes.
Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it's...
And I don't think they were making fun of that aspect. Like, they were supposed to be the coolest guys on campus, and it wasn't supposed to be questions about it.
There needs to be a modern remake. Like, this could be, like, really funny. Modernized, and if you basically take this movie and make it actually based, you know? Like, actually...
Well, and you can even set it in the same period. Like, you don't have to make it a modern war, just a modern remake.
That's what I meant. Yeah, I meant, like, still same time period, but modern ideals.
I'm with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
I wonder, I mean, the show, like, when was the show a thing?
A couple years after, like, 72, I think, is when it starts.
And it lasted in 11 seasons. Interesting. So... till 1983 is when it stopped. So gotcha. That's the last MASH. Is that the last MASH content that's ever been released?
I think that's the last MASH content that ever existed.
That's an interesting sentence to say, but
MASH content.
Yeah.
No, but it is interesting though, because like the show is set around these same characters, just different actors. Like Hawkeye and McIntyre are still the main. Trapper John McIntyre are still the main characters. Hawkeye played by Alan Alda, which was just wild because
I gotta give this show a watch maybe. Now,
I don't know that I'll ever really dive in, but you know,
I just want the general idea of kind of what the show's about.
I mean, like like I said, it is important as a cultural touchstone in American television history. Like it's.
I think looking at the actors of the show, I think this is Uncle Junior from The Sopranos is in the show.
Dominic Chianese?
Oh, never mind. He looks exactly like him though. This guy's name is Jamie Farr, born Jamil Joseph Farah. I don't know what. I'm assuming he's known as Jamie Farr because that's his Wikipedia page.
Yeah, Jamie Farr.
But he looks just like Uncle Junior. Holy crap, that's crazy.
I can see it for sure. He does look a lot like Corrado.
At least his Wikipedia picture. It's it's the glasses. It's just the Junior glasses. I think that's
really pulling it together for you. But I mean, it does seem like it would be, and like I said, it was like Game of Thrones when it was in its last season. The numbers it was pulling down on TV, like they weren't coming close to MASH.
Yeah.
Which is like, holy shit. Because like, I mean, when MASH was on, you also got to take into account, there was like 5 TV shows. But,
that's, I never thought about, like, but this is like, I think the only thing to beat it, like overall, like it's hard to compare like a show from the 70s and then like Stranger Things. Or like a Squid Game, because like more people watched Squid Game and like Stranger Things, but like Squid Game's not a better show than MASH. I'm assuming, like, I'm just assuming MASH is a better show than Squid Game. You know, like
and that's what's interesting though is that like it really is like how much do we weigh the historical impact of something compared to the messaging of something that modernly might be saying something more impactful. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what, like, if the TV show is more self-aware and if they are making fun, and because I really hope it's not just the same thing, just spread out even more. But this was a good starting place. Hope we'll get some movies that don't go too hard with the political correctness.
I think this was. I'm thinking this will be our worst one.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that'll be the case. I wanna draw the attention to this real quick. MASH, their finale drew in, or I'll start with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones drew in its finale 20 million viewers. 20 million.
Dang.
And in MASH's finale, it drew 106
million. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Holy crap. That's like I mean, it's not Super Bowl. How many people watch the Super Bowl?
No, listen to this. Listen to this. The advertising time in that finale, $450,000 for a 30-second ad, was more than the ad slots for the 1983 Super Bowl.
The 2021 Super Bowl, which apparently is the lowest watched Super Bowl since 2007, was 96 million people. So MASH, like, destroyed that, which is insane. Like, I'm looking at the average, like, Super Bowl viewings, and it's like 30, 40, 50. Like, how is that? How did they say that was? Oh, never mind. There's the real number. Yeah, so the highest Super Bowl looks to be 114 million. So MASH is even bigger than the biggest Super Bowl.
Just about.
That's
there,
wild.
anyway.
That is. Oh wait, what was Matt? I thought you said. Oh, okay, never mind. So I mean, yeah. So it's basically almost as big as the biggest Super Bowl, which is insane. That's because, like, the biggest Super Bowl, though, a lot more people had access to a TV.
Yeah.
Like,
what year was that?
It was like 2015 or 16 or something like that.
Jesus,
so
that's crazy.
Yeah, like very modern. Yeah. So that is wild. I didn't know it was that big. I knew it was big, and it's like the biggest of all time. But like, I guess I never really thought of how big it was.
It was like, I don't want to say it was the first of its kind. I mean, like, because I mean, like, the Twilight Zone existed and stuff. Like, there were still big shows and stuff, but like, I don't know. The MASH drew in people in a way that just didn't resonate with others, I guess.
Wow. The same year, the Super Bowl. Wow. Come on, man. Kansas City versus Minnesota. What are the odds that that's the Super Bowl? That only pulled in 44 million that year. Like, they almost tripled. That's like they almost tripled the Super Bowl in the same year. That is wild.
That is fucking absurd.
I think that's enough to get me to at least watch a couple episodes.
Oh yeah. It's a it's a cultural touchstone for sure. But shit, man, I hit all my notes that I wanted to cover. I don't have much else to say on MASH. You want to get some final thoughts in? Just maybe we go like out of 5. Like we'll give it like a 5-star.
I have a very interesting rating system, and I want to know if you're down with this. This is how my cousins rate movies, and they have like 3 different categories. They have film, they have comedy, and then they just have like movies that don't fit in comedy or film. So like this would be a comedy movie. They wouldn't put this as a film. A film is like Interstellar, or like an epic, like film, like meant to be something amazing. A comedy is a comedy, and then anything else is like superhero movies, movies that aren't supposed to be as taken as seriously as a film.
Gotcha.
So, and I think that's an important distinction to make when you're rating a film.
So
they start with that. That's the first part of the rating, is just saying whether it's a film, comedy, or just misc movie, basically. And then they give a scale from 1 to 10. So, like, The Departed is like one of their favorite movies. They say that's a film 9 or a film 10 on some days. Is like what they say. Good. Yeah, I'm glad The Departed's on our list. But I think maybe we could have some other categories like film, comedy, and misc is kind of
like, I was thinking in my head, like, we'll make it relevant to the genre. Like, if we're comparing a Star Wars to a MASH, an 8 out of 10 on these scales is not the same. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Like, it's just not. And to, like, I mean, to your point, like, I'm trying to think of like film. Like, I'm not gonna look and watch La La Land the same way I watch MASH. Like, I 100% get what you're saying. So like, we'll make it relevant to the topic at hand, and I think that it's important that we look at this as a movie from 1970, a comedy from the 1970s. It has aged poorly. However, there are still good aspects. Therefore, I throw this movie like smack dab in the middle at like 2.5 out of 5 stars. You know what I'm saying? Like 2.5 to 3 stars out of 5.
That's what I was about to say. Because out of 10, I'd maybe give it a 6. It was either a 5 or 6 is what initially was pulling out. So 2.5. Wouldn't give it a 3 out of 5. Maybe on a good day.
Yeah,
you know,
like, I'll go 2.5 out of 5 stars.
I think I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with the 2.5.
All right.
That sounds good.
So do you want to do the 5-star system or the scale of 1 to 10?
I think maybe we just have like 5 stars but we make the distinction between that this is this isn't a film 2.5.
No.
Like this isn't a 2.5 out of 5 on a film spectrum. This is like, I guess maybe we can give a general 5-star for every movie, and then maybe give that as a comedy, how does this movie perform?
I think that's what the whole review segment is for. Like we clarify plenty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
People know.
I guess maybe instead of just clarifying, maybe we give like 3 scores. We give the score just as a film, like how the movie scores, like a storyline, all that stuff.
Okay.
We give whatever the genre of the movie is, how well it pertains to that. Like, so basically how good of a comedy this was. And then maybe just how much you enjoyed the movie. Like,
okay.
I think that's,
it's fair.
Yeah.
So like on that 5-star scale for a general film, I go 2 out of 5.
Okay. I'm there.
For a comedy, as it is, this is on the funny side. It does its job. Like, I know what was generally supposed to be the tone. So you know what? I'm gonna go that generous 2.5, maybe 3 out of 5.
I'll give it a 3 out of 5 for comedy. Just because I like, if someone in the 1970s was watching this is getting a lot of laughs, like in the theater.
Oh, and I mean, like, it was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. It won an Academy Award for the best screenplay. Like, it was critically acclaimed for the time. Like, this was a culturally relevant and impactful movie, and so that can't be dismissed. You know, so I think a 3 out of 5 on the comedy scale is fair, and that's probably about where it falls in my enjoyment of the movie. It wasn't the best movie I've ever watched, but I definitely didn't dislike it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so right there in the middle is probably fair at that 2. I'll go straight up in the middle again, 2.5 out of 5 stars.
Yeah. Is this kind of a middle of the road movie today? Is how it is. Is it today? It is a middle of the road movie. I'd recommend watching it. Just go in knowing that there is some stuff, that you probably won't agree with.
Yep. Trigger warning. Sexism, homophobia, racism, sexual harassment, suicide. Like, there's a lot of stuff covered in this movie. There's a lot of gore. There's a lot of blood. Like, it's all over the place. And I think for the time, it's an all right movie. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice way to start it off. We have a lot of great movies coming up that I'm very excited for. So
1 down and 51 to go, buddy.
Let's go. Yeah, I'm excited.
Hell yeah. Well, that'll conclude it. This was our opening to 2022. 52 films. Here we are. 1 down. This was the Penny Bloom Podcast. It was I, Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph motherfucking George. Thank you very much, buddy.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure for me to be here.
Oh, of course.
Can't wait for next week.
I can't wait either. And next week we will be covering 1971's A Clockwork Orange, another Stanley Kubrick film after 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's this one's going to be fucking weird. That's what I'll tell you.
Interesting.
It's going to be fucking weird.
Never seen it, so I'll give her a watch.
Fuck yeah, buddy. I look forward to it. And head to patreon.com/CoroBloom, where you'll find well over 20 hours of content, exclusive content to that website. I also put up a bunch of posters and digital artwork and paintings and stuff that I do over there, not to be seen anywhere else. And that money obviously is used to keep making the podcast. Costs money to put this thing out. I'm not making any. We don't do ad sales or anything, so this is what I'm doing. So if you could support, that'd be awesome. Head to Twitter and follow @PennyBloomPod. Follow on Instagram @PennyBloomPodcast, and like I said on Twitter, you'll be seeing some more updates for like what's to come in general. Like we're currently also covering the Book of Boba Fett, so go check those out. And it's a joy. It's a joy. Loving that so far. I'm just gonna assume. Loving that so far. But yeah, head over there to hear our thoughts on it, and remember, peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves.